I came to the Santa Clarita Valley in 1960, and I came here to teach at Newhall Elementary School. My mother taught there, and I was broke, needed a job, and they were hiring people without credentials. So I said, wow, it sounds like a great opportunity. And I'm still here.
Your mother was already teaching there in 60s?
Yes.
So you followed her, basically.
Actually, she probably got me the job.
When did she come out here?
1959. I was born in Auburn, New York. Came to California in 1951 and went to school in Pasadena until I was the middle of my senior year, and my parents bought a house in San Fernando Valley, so I got to change high schools the middle of my senior year, which was a real treat. And went to Northridge, take that back, went to Valley JC for 2 years, and then went to Northridge for 2 years, and then went back east to school for a year, went to Georgetown. I wanted to be a foreign service officer. The fact that I had no facility to retain foreign languages kind of put a kibosh on that career. I was driving home and decided to make it an all-in-one fell swoop from Washington, D.C., and fell asleep in Arizona and put my car in a ditch, and it was uninsured. And it was my only asset. So I'm living back home now without a job. I could have gone to law school. I could have become an air traffic controller, none of which had any great appeal. And my mother, who was a teacher in Newhall, said, they're paying $22 a day for substitutes. They might want to hire you. They're always looking for men. So I did. They hired me. And the only funny story I have I still remember the first day of substitute teaching. It was in the 3rd grade at Peachland Avenue School. The teacher's name was Polson. And I'm driving up, because I don't have a car anymore, with my mother, and she looks at me and she said, you don't seem too nervous. I said, well, I'm bigger than they are and I'm smarter than they are. And she looked at me, she said, you're bigger than they are. Well, by morning recess, the kids knew I don't have a clue. And so I went to the teacher next door and said, help. And she gave me some ideas, and I found out I was good at it and liked it. So I stayed.
Who was that teacher?
The teacher next door? No, don't remember her name.
I would imagine that, I guess in 1960, there were just the 2 schools in Newhall.
Yeah, and Peachland was really just about half a school. It was fully built, but only half occupied, because the kids still were going to Newhall School. And we didn't get the 3rd school until 3-4 years later, Wiley Canyon. And that was half a school. It was built to be half a school. And it's grown like Topsy.
What made you stay?
I liked teaching. I liked the kids. I was good at it, got a lot of strokes for it. And I saw, if these guys can run a school, I can run a school. So I pretty much advanced. I mean, I only taught 3 years, and I was assistant principal for 2, and then a principal for 6, and then superintendent. So there's no place else to go. I lived home for probably the first 2 years, and then I moved up here and lived in an apartment across the street from Hart High School for about a year. A friend of mine from college was my roommate, because I didn't make enough money to afford an apartment by myself, because I didn't have a credential. So there's a name for it, I don't even remember what it was now, but you got paid half of what a teacher got paid.
And then at some point, this new place called Valencia came along.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of the place to look at buying. So we looked at it like the houses, and I remember it was a choice between this house, we've lived in this, we're original owners, and a house up off Valley Street, which was relatively new, built by Herb McLeod. And my father said, the ones up on Valley Street don't have sewers. Don't buy a house that doesn't have a sewer. Well, that left Valencia, it had a sewer, but I've lived here ever since. Great place.
Who's the we who bought in this house?
I mean, who?
You said we.
My wife and I.
Tell me about your wife.
Met her here. She was a teacher at Peachland, taught 4th grade. We were the only single teachers in the school district, so we were thrown together and we resisted for a long period of time of being set up. But when we finally met, we hit it off pretty well. We got married about a year after we'd met. And she continued to teach until at Peachland until she had children. And then after her children were grown, she went back to school and taught at Placerita, taught English to 8th graders, which means she's not a sensible woman.
And what was her name? What was her maiden name?
Bibelheimer. She's a German, obviously, from North Dakota.
So, how is it that you said you became principal of what school?
Opened up Wiley Canyon School. Was
so
there?
You were principal at Wiley Canyon in 1972?
No. I'm trying to remember I was principal of what?
Morey was. That's right.
Yeah, best principal.
How could I forget her?
I'm surprised. There's the best principal in the world.
Yeah. She
So
whooped my butt.
yeah, good for her.
Paddle. In her office.
That's back in the day.
Yeah.
That was back in the day. No, by that time, in '72, I think I probably was superintendent. The superintendent that was there, Walter House, he moved on to, I think he was became superintendent in Bakersfield. And he suggested I apply. And I said, come on, I haven't done this long enough. He said, you're making the biggest mistake of your life if you don't apply. So I applied and got the job. Got interviewed by the school board and they hired me.
But there weren't any qualified people out there?
Oh, hey, Les Tanner, I thought had the job. He was my composition, and I thought he had the job, and he probably should have had the job. I was just more talkative and more outgoing than he was, less serious, perhaps.
What was going on in the 70s that presented challenges for you as a superintendent?
Lots of growth. Not only a lot of it, but fast. It was happening. I mean, Valencia was going leaps and bounds. We opened Old Orchard School in '68, I think, and the principal who had been at Peachland, he opened Old Orchard, and so they moved me from Wiley Canyon to Peachland because I had more experience and it was a full school. But like everything else, the plans of men go off astray. The school was not completed in time to open in September, but we'd already hired the teachers and they made up the classes, and the kids had been moved from Newhall to Orchard, from Wiley to Orchard, from Peachland to Orchard. So the classes are all set up. So they decided to double up. So Peachland, as I remember, I had kindergarten and 1st grade and 6th grade, and we had classes, same room, back to back, operating with 2 teachers. It was a challenge and an opportunity. But, and so the school really didn't open. Old Orchard didn't open until probably after the first of the year. So we did that for 4, 5, 6 months. So that was a challenge. And then the state was short of money, so you had to have pass bond issues that required a lot of work in the community to get support for bond issues to build schools. So growth was probably the most difficult thing to do. And you couldn't do much curriculum-wise because you didn't have time. You were just busy keeping up with numbers. Basically, it was the education philosophy of Dr. Les Tanner, who was the opening principal, and he and the superintendent agreed to build what we called a team teaching school, because if you look at the school, there are 3-leaf clovers. There were no walls. There were just 3 separate teaching spaces, and there were 3 teachers there, and they taught cooperatively, and you moved kids freely throughout that grade level. Each grade level had a pod. It worked really very well until we started to grow so fast, and the teachers in the pod didn't have enough input on who the new person was, because we used to give them a lot of authority when there was a vacancy as to the personality and the skills of the person that was going to replace the one that was leaving. And it got so we just had to assign people there, and sometimes they didn't get along, or personally or philosophically. But team teaching worked very well for a while. You constantly had to educate parents, because they looked at it and it looked like a zoo. It really wasn't. If you had quality staff there, it worked very nicely. But if you go in there now, you'll notice that there's walls up, and there's 3 separate classrooms in each of those pods. So team teaching kind of died. But it was built by design to do that. So time you change the program or the structure, it required architectural changes. I would say Old Orchard would probably have been a rarity, that you would have built a school so dedicated to a particular style of instruction and teaching. Technology now requires all kinds of changes. They're just different, and they're expensive.
You mentioned bond measures. Weren't the developers paying for the schools at that time?
No.
So how are the schools?
They donated the property. And of course, if you donate the site, you make sure you're going to have a school in your development. So it was not all simple, good civic spirit. But they donated the site. We had to front the construction costs. We were pretty successful in getting bond issues passed. Young community, lots of kids in school. So parents, by and large, were supportive of spending money on school construction. The state changed. As far as the state was concerned, that auditorium was classrooms. So your eligibility for new construction was the auditorium was a deduct, because I don't know how many square feet it was, but it was a lot. And I think, as I remember, it's like 20 classrooms. And so that couldn't be. So we decided it's no longer an auditorium, it's a warehouse. So I'm the evil guy who tore all the chairs out, and I think we leveled the floor, because it does slant, and turned it into a warehouse. And then Patty Rasmussen and a few others taught me the error of my ways after a while. I don't know why they did it, but they decided all of this space you had with 4 walls and a roof was classroom space, which meant interior corridors, like at Newhall School, where they're inside corridors, the auditorium, all, as far as they're concerned, square footage, and you get 900 square feet for a classroom, so therefore that's enough room for classrooms. Actually, for a period of time, we actually had classes in there. On the flat part, we had 2 or 3. I think maybe I've had 1 on the stage, and that really didn't work very well. So I decided it was going to be a warehouse. Was their community upset some? I could say I didn't care, but I didn't. I mean, it was something I had to do in terms of future construction. The people who were upset with me couldn't care about future construction. They cared about their auditorium. But in all honesty, the auditorium would have required an awful lot of work to really be usable. And since I taught at Newhall School, we used it a lot. It was not unused space. We used to have graduation, promotion was in there. We used to put on plays, musicals, concerts. So it was used.
You said hallways. I mean, of course, Newhall School has interior hallways, unlike some of the other schools, but you would have to hold, assuming you're holding classes in hallways?
I don't think they even cared, but there's some things you could modify architecturally at the corridors you couldn't. And when we built Meadows School, it was all under one roof. So that way, and with movable walls, so we could move walls around to accommodate the number of classrooms. It was a way for the state to save money, I think, which I understand. I would say probably the users were the faculty and students at Newhall School. I don't recall that it was used widely in the community or by other schools. It became unfashionable, I think, to have auditoriums. When you built new schools, you didn't build auditoriums. I think a lot of the Saga schools really have no auditorium or central space. The kids eat outdoors, and they have covered patios. So it just out of I mean, Hart High having that big auditorium, that was unusual. Although standard in high school, probably until then, it became unusual. And I think it was a matter of money. Yeah, at that time, I think the one I remember was all people. It wasn't all. That's when Newhall and Peachland that was the district, and I think we had at least one. I don't know if it was a Christmas show or whatever. We had one show where both schools were involved. Actually, my wife was the choral director at Peachland, so we got to do 2 days there, one for Peachland and one for Newhall. That particular decision, it depended on the issue, but that particular decision, I think, was me. And at that time, the board was pretty much a business-oriented board. The traditional school boards at that time were business people in the community, and they saw it as a business decision of being able to access more state money. So it was, but I would say if there's blame, it's mine. And I just convinced them that was the right thing to do.
And as a result of doing this, you were able to get what?
Probably got Meadows Elementary School out of it quicker than I would have gotten it otherwise, because I qualified for more square footage. And the problem with qualifying is the kids already have to be here for you to qualify. You always have to have the numbers. So we would be crowded for a while until the new school opened. And as I recall, Meadows opened on time. That was the first school I built.
How many schools did you build and open?
1, 2, 3, I think. I'm trying to remember. I built Meadows, built Valencia Valley. I think there must be one other. They seem to be there forever. It probably was toward the end of my superintendency, because they thought and communicated that it was such a waste of valuable space to be used as a warehouse. So as I recall, I told them, well, I'd consider if they got me a warehouse. And so they got me a warehouse. And I think I probably thought of some other reasons why I couldn't do it after that, but I don't recall what they were. They might. But they finally got me a warehouse, so I ran out of excuses for not doing it. But then the biggest excuse was how much money it was going to cost to bring it up to snuff. Then we formed Theater Arts for Children soon after that and started making plans and thinking about raising money.
So you were part of Theater Arts for Children. Why? I mean, if I thought you were the evil guy who shut down the...
I was, but I was under a lot of pressure from them to make amends. It's like penance. The vision really was to refurbish it, to make it into a usable auditorium. The more we got into it, the less feasible under our conditions it became. We raised, I think, $100,000. I forget how much it was. But the only thing we did was fix the roof. And I see how much they spent to restore it. But then Patty showed me the pictures. I did not have that vision. It was to be usable. But when we made it a warehouse, we took all the seats out. As I recall, we sawed them off at the floor. I mean, we just leveled the floor. Mm-hmm. And we had to find a place to put all the gear. And then when finally we came close to it, there's an upstairs in it, which was a projection room. And that's where all the student records were housed. And we had to find a place to put those. So Ann Hazlett, who was probably just retired as assistant superintendent, she and I went through and cleaned all the cleaned is probably not the right word, moved all the student records out. I can remember sliding them down on a ramp down the stairs from upstairs because we neglected to have an elevator put in for us. And we got rid of all those. And we hired an architect to design a roof and did that. And then it just kind of piddled away. Paper goods, basketballs, volleyballs, chalk, pencils. It was just general school supplies is what we stored there. Probably stored maintenance stuff too, like floor cleaner. But it's I mean, if you've been in it, it's a big building. And when the floor is flat, and we flattened the floor out, leveled it, you could put a lot of stuff in there.
So was that all stuff from Newhall School, or had it become
No, it was a district warehouse. And we built what I call the annex. It was next door, still there. I'm not sure what they use it for now, but we made that the warehouse. So we built a building. We were able to do it because we had a little bond money left over, and it was cheap construction. It's not built to the standards of a school classroom, so we had the money to do it, so we did it. And it was close, so it wouldn't take a lot of effort to move the stuff over. So, but then the auditorium's just empty and not real usable because no chairs. And everything was gone. Everything from the stage was gone, the curtains were gone, everything was gone. So in order to make it an auditorium or a theater, you had to start from scratch. All you've got is the shell. And I'm not sure, having watched what they did to it when they were doing the construction, looks like they did a lot of stuff with the shell. It may not have met current construction standards, I don't know. It was built in the late 30s. Yeah, I'm not sure it was to make it into an auditorium. It was to provide the opportunity for it to be used for instructional purposes for kids. And since we didn't have enough money to do that on our own, I decided, I guess, that we'd build a building. And I think we built it there because we owned the property. And I think if we had tried to build it at Meadows or Valencia Valley, we'd have had a homeowner revolt. You didn't get revolts at Newhall in the neighborhood. As Patty showed me the picture, it's a beautiful place. Well beyond what it ever was when I was a teacher there and we used it. It was pretty much plain Jane. It was a school auditorium. And there's nothing fancy generally about a school auditorium. It may surprise you, but I think my greatest accomplishment was the school food services agency. I tend to be a very practical person, and I thought, rather than have food prepared in the kitchens at 20 schools, why not prepare the food in one place designed to produce the food? And the fact that I was able to get that done and convince 2 other school districts to come in with me was a major accomplishment, I thought. So it's probably the one I'm most proud of. The other is getting rid of transportation and giving it to the Hart School District. We ran buses, and the people who ran the buses, drove the buses, there are custodians, there are maintenance men. There was nobody really in charge of it, so it was the business guy handled it, and he really didn't do buses. The Hart District had a good transportation system, and they had a guy who knew how to run it. So I approached Clyde Smythe at the time. Why don't we pool our resources, get together? That way we can have a place to put all the buses, because I recall our buses were parked in the Peachland school parking lot, which is not a conducive thing to a good school atmosphere. And I think I convinced, let's see, who was at Silver Springs? Bob Nolet, and I think Jim Foster at Saugus, and the 4 of us got together and figured out a way to do it. And as I don't remember the legalities of it, but I think we had to do something with the state. They had to pass some law that we could do it. But I think it's cut the transportation costs for all of the school districts. As frankly, the demands for student transportation have diminished. Maybe the demand hasn't, the provision of it has diminished. Because really now, majority of kids being bused are special education. Special education kids, most regular kids are in the traffic jams outside every school.
They're in the city buses.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't have that then, the city buses. And no one walks to school.
And so the Newhall District and the other districts would, what, pay the Hart District?
No, actually, I don't remember how we set it up. I think we pay the Hart District, because I don't think that's a joint powers. The cafeteria food service is a joint powers. It's a separate entity. Two reasons. One was cost. I didn't have to build a preparation kitchen in every school. And two, we had outgrown the quote central kitchen we had was at Newhall. And by the time we added Meadows School, the fourth school, it just didn't have the capacity to do that. And as I remember the law, you couldn't build a preparation kitchen in every school. You only could build a serving kitchen. So it was and everybody was growing. Saugus was growing, Newhall was growing, Sulphur Spring was growing, Hart was growing. It was a felt need by all of us. Wouldn't it be smart for us to get together and build one handsome, efficient plant? Which we did. Growth was always one of the biggest challenges, and having to deal with growth. And then toward the end, I think it's worse now, is the constant changes in curriculum and instructional practices. I don't think they stuck with, because the state started to dictate more of that, and I don't think they stuck with anything long enough to see if it worked or not. Best example is, what is the one they do now?
Common Core?
Common Core, great idea. The universities have screwed it up. They've made it more complicated than that. The idea that everybody the students in New York and the students in California should be studying pretty much the same curriculum makes hopeless good sense. But then they got into methodology and grouping and made it, and testing. We give too many tests now. So, to be perfect, I never was an instruction guy. I always tried to hire principals who could deal with that, and I trusted them to do it. I tend to be more a business guy, but I had some really great principals, and kind of gave them their head. Well, Mrs. Morey being one, and Dr. Tanner, they probably are the two best principals I ever saw in my life. Way better than I was when I was a principal. Yeah, phonics. And I think we may be, I don't know, but I think we may be back. I work with student teachers now. I think we may be back to phonics, but we abandoned it for a while. And so we produced a whole bunch of students who don't read very well. And if they come across new words, don't know what to do with it. I think the old method of teaching kids how to sound out words and build vocabulary and develop vocabulary was probably the best method. And I think we may be coming back to that again.
Did you have any say in the selection of your successor as superintendent?
No.
Did you do any encouragement or discouragement or anything like that?
No, when it came down to it, I mean, I knew Dr. Winger. He'd worked for me, so I knew him, and I think I knew he'd applied. But he never called on me. I never called on him. I honestly thought the selection of superintendent is none of my business. I just was the superintendent, did the best job I could do, and I'm done. And it's a new school board, and the school board that hired Dr. Winger may not have hired me. And the school board that hired me may not have hired him. It's all a matter of their expectations and their druthers. So I had zero. Nobody asked me anything, which is the way I preferred it. I remember all of the rumors that especially when LA was going through it, that we're going to be busing kids from up here into Los Angeles, and kids from Los Angeles were going to be bused out here. I still remember going to some parent meetings about that, and I think I spent the time reassuring that that wasn't going to happen. It was illegal. They couldn't happen. The feds could try to do that, but it probably wasn't really going to happen. And there's really no significance in the color of the face of the kid sitting next to. I happened to go to when I moved to California, I came from a small town in upstate New York. Irish and Italian, and we didn't get along, and I went to a parochial school, Catholic school. When I came to California, my parents enrolled me in St. Francis High School in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. It was a boys' school. I didn't like it. So the second day I'm there, I hitched back to Pasadena and spent the day in the library. Never dawned on me that they might call. So about the third or fourth day, my mother gets a phone call. Yeah, I guess Michael's happy there. What do you mean he hasn't been there? So I told him, I said, I don't like it. You can't afford it. I just soon go to public school. So the school so we call up, what's your attendance area? So I went to Washington Junior High School. It was probably 40% black, African American. I had never seen a black person in person, like you and I, never seen one. And I'm at a school it's a lot of them. Did that bother me? I thought I was uncomfortable for a while. But as soon as you learn the rules, you're fine. First dance. I like to dance. And there was a really pretty African American girl in my class. I asked her to dance. She seemed a little taken aback by it, but she danced with me. 3 guys chased me all the way home. And if they'd caught me, they'd have beat the living daylights out of me, but I knew the neighborhood better than they did. So the next day, I played football. The next day, some of my teammates took me aside. They called me Mac. Mac, we don't mess with your women. You don't mess with our women. And so basically, at school, everybody got along. Outside school, you'd have nothing to do with each other. So the fact that you go to school with a black kid or an Hispanic kid or an Asian kid shouldn't make any difference, and you're dealing with the parents' prejudice then. And it went away. I mean, we went through the business of making it some attendance boundaries of sending Meadows kids to Wiley Can. Probably should have done it anyway to equalize the enrollment in the schools, but that gave us a good excuse for doing it, and it wanders away. National Distinguished Schools. All it does is takes a program, and I think Newhall is a good program, takes leadership. You got a strong principal. The best example is McGrath School. When Larry Heath was the principal there, that's an Hispanic school. I mean, I think there's some Anglo kids supposed to go there. My guess is they don't. And Larry put in a program to service those kids. And I had student teachers there. I remember being in his office, and the assistant principal's on the phone. It's right before Christmas vacation, and he's talking to a parent. He said, Juan is supposed to be in the week of special classes during this Christmas break. I know he doesn't want to be there. He's going to be there. Give me 15 minutes. I'll be down and pick him up. So those kids got extra work, got extra time, and guess what? It's a National Distinguished School. All kids can learn. I served the district at a good time, at a time that was a possibility to do things. I think I did them, and I did the best of my ability. I loved the school district. It was, I only tried to leave once, and partly because it grew apace with my financial needs, and but by the time I got serious about it, my kids were in high school, and I wasn't going to move then. I had when I had to move a couple of times in school, I didn't like it much, and I wouldn't inflict that on them. The one job I applied for and didn't get, though, is I was really upset about, because I thought, I read the description, I talked to the people, the job was me, and I didn't even get an interview. So I decided the good Lord has put me here for a reason. And as long as it doesn't say memorial on the school, I'm a happy camper.
What job was that you didn't get? What did you want to do?
It was down in San Diego County, one of the beach cities. I thought living at the beach would be a great idea, but I'm sure those districts have a lot of people applying for them. So it was for the best.